Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamaduchyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vashishyati. Om Shanti Shanti. So, I thank the director of the institute and all the dignitaries here, especially the director, to have agreed to have a Satsang talk here in your institute. And of course, namaskar to all good friends who are here. The talk today is quite after my heart. It's called Connecting Mind and Body for Healthy Living. Now, this is something, before I start on the proper, I want to give you a little introductory briefing. There was a time when, among certain sections of people, spirituality and religion and so on was considered a very non-scientific and superstitious part of life once upon a time, not very long ago. But today, things have changed because the scientific researchers have shed their prejudice and come forward saying, maybe there is something in these spiritual practices that we should inquire into, experiment and figure out. And these practitioners of spiritual sciences have also changed their mind and allowed the scientific community to check and figure out if their claims are right, true, or proper, or scientific. So this is a good, and now we are slowly developing, touching both these fields together and moving forward. I think this is what we need in this century to move forward. Fortunately for us, in this country, a lot of research has been done in the spiritual as well as health conscious fields. A lot of research has already been done from the point of view of a spiritual experimenter. Now the need of the hour is to bring modern scientific research and the research that we have over the centuries in this country. And we must admit that when the rest of the world was looking for material gains and other things, here was a set of dedicated people in this country who were researching on the mind, which is why we have so much material. Researching on the mind, going inside, trying to find out what are our origins, where did we come from, what is this thing called mind, and also how it is connected to the body, to the physical body, as well as the body called the mind body. According to Sankhya, mind is not a spiritual entity, it is a subtle part of matter. The consciousness which is beyond the mind is that which is not material. Even the mind is considered material. So now this is an interesting thing because if you go back and read the ancient teachings, we have the Sushruta Samhita, a treasure trove of scientific medical analysis. We have the Sushruta Samhita and we also have the, what is the other Ayurvedic text? Charaka Samhita. Even great surgeries have been performed in those days. And this has been properly researched. Today, an average Ayurvedic practitioner does not have the wherewithal or the knowledge to perform surgery. In Sushruta Samhita, you see Sushruta himself performing brain surgery. It's been lost to us. So, I'm not saying because it is lost we should forget about it, bring it back in scientific terms, not because it is part of our culture, which is, of course, you cannot deny it. But look at how scientific it is and research into this. Now, the most important gift that has been given to us is something called the science of yoga. It is the science of yoga. I'm deliberately saying science of yoga instead of art of yoga. The science of yoga is that which actually establishes the link between the physical body and the mind and what is beyond the mind. This is yoga. And therefore, here is a suggestion. When you go back after this talk, read a good translation of the Yogasutras of Patanjali. Now don't think that yoga is merely doing asanas. There is a misunderstanding that yoga is to do only asanas or pranayama for that matter. Yoga is much more. It is actually a research into the mind and how it is connected to the body, and how when this link is properly established and balanced, then a person can rise even above what they called beyond the mind. First, let's look at the mind-body relationship. There is a beautiful chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, the 15th chapter. It's called Purushottama Yoga. The description given is very interesting. It starts by saying, Urdhamulam matashakam ashvatham prahuravyayam chandamsi yasya paranani yastam vedasa vedavit. Which means, the teacher in the Gita says, there is an upside down peepal tree, ashwatha tree, whose roots are up above and branches down below. He who understands first, beginning with the leaves, understands the Vedas and then goes beyond. Now, very often we think this might be an imaginary tree that has been mentioned, or a tree, because normally we see only trees with the roots below and branches above. Here is an upside down tree. Does such a tree exist? It cannot biologically exist, botanically. It's a symbol. The symbol is very nicely explained. I learnt it from my master, but it has been beautifully explained in two places. One is the Jnaneshwari of Jnaneshwar in Maharashtra, where he has discussed the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. The second, much more later, by a great yogi who lived in Bengal and later on went to Banaras, whose name was Shamacharan Lahiri. People refer to him as Lahiri Mahashaya. He wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, in which he took up this, understanding this. I don't know if it's available in English. It's written in Bengali, maybe. Now, if you look at it carefully, what we understand is that the upside down peepal tree, while it has its own cosmic significance, in the microcosm, it's actually the human body. How? Our limbs, our hands, our senses, our legs, where is the original control from? So where is the root? Here. This is the root from which the entire body is controlled, including the mind. The mind. So people tend to think that all this yoga, they may be just written, but they are very, very scientific. Let me explain this to you. The master gland that controls the whole system, including our thoughts, is the brain. And inside the brain there is the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. It is according to the hormones that are injected into the bloodstream by these master glands that we take decisions, that we move forward, we imagine things, we become creative, everything. Even depression is because there is some maladjustment somewhere there. So this is the root, and these are the branches. Now, the main branch, according to us, is that starts from the head and goes down to the end of the spine, called the Sushumna Nadi. This is the main branch. From that, the ganglionic chain, the various other sympathetic nervous systems, everything comes out from there. If you actually look at a Gray's anatomy, well, we have a yoga anatomy slightly different. But in Gray's anatomy, you will see exactly that here is the root, and from there comes so many more clusters. They form plexuses in different parts of the body, and therefore the body is functioning. Even thinking, the decisions that we make depends on this. From here. In fact, recently, neurobiologists have discovered, even before we translate a decision into action, 2 seconds before the decision has been taken. Already. Here. One wonders even if our actions are dictated by this, or whether we are independent of this. Okay, so that is one side of the story. Now, I had a talk 3 years ago in Geneva in the WHO. The subject of the talk was yoga beyond asanas. I'm not saying asanas are very good. Asanas are one part of yoga. I have been practicing asanas from the age of 10 till today. And probably today morning somebody was asking me, how do you manage all this hectic schedule that you have? I said, I don't look at it as hectic. I mean, it's part of life. Why? Because through the practice of yoga, the body is healthy. If the body is healthy, the mind is healthy. The mind is healthy, the mind is well settled, peacefully. So, no, we won't come to that right now. I'll later on tell you why the mind has to settle down and why it is useful even in this world, apart from the spiritual journey. So, let me go to this is an institute, Central Research Institute. They are laying stress on chemical, and also into Ayurveda and the effect of drugs and so on. I was talking to the director Sahab and he was explaining to me. Now you see this. I am meditating. Why I am saying this? Because the yoga asanas and pranayama are not merely physical exercises. According to the Yoga Shastra, of course, the most important authoritative text is the Yogasutra of Patanjali. Yoga is given the name of Ashtanga Yoga. Patanjali does not call it Ashtanga Yoga anywhere in his text, but it's called popularly Ashtanga Yoga because it has 8 parts, 8 branches. What are the 8 branches? First, yama niyama. Rules, and we will come back to that. Rules and regulations to be followed by a yogi. Simply by eating all food that is available, overeating, and so on, you cannot really go to the next step. So yama niyamas are important. What you eat, what you don't eat, how you live. In Ayurveda it's called dinachara. Otherwise medicines are not of any use. Then you come to asana. Yama, niyama, asana, postures, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and samadhi. That is spiritual, samadhi. Samadhi starts from dharana, dhyana and then culminating in samadhi. All the other parts are not entirely spiritual, but I would say physico-spiritual. Why this has been done this way? Why has it been arranged this way? Very simple. When I say I am meditating, so yogasanas do not deal only with your muscles. They have a great part to play in balancing your ductless glands. Now, when I say I am meditating, and I feel so nice, it is beautiful. One would say, now this is the psychological aspect or the spiritual aspect. Let me point out that it is also based on the chemical change that is taking place in the body. How? When I say I'm feeling nice, it means there is a good amount of serotonin in my blood system. Serotonin is the feel-good factor. Dopamine is the next one. Too much dopamine can cause problems. So when there is serotonin in the system, I feel blissful and meditating. So on one hand, it's a chemical change. On the other hand, after that what we do depends on something else. I feel blissful, but when I come out, I do all kinds of things. So what I'm trying to show is that there is a chemical basis to your moods, and it's your moods that take you deeper into your mind. The next gland, which is just under the pituitary gland, very small, it's called the pineal gland. 100 years ago, Swami Vivekananda, speaking in London in a public function, said, I'm beginning to wonder if this pineal gland has any connection with our meditation. And then many years later, about 80 years or so, they found out that the pineal gland contains a certain chemical which adjusts, controls and balances our sleep factor. Melatonin. Melatonin is secreted by the pineal gland, and it is this melatonin that causes us, that brings about the sleep and waking circuit. If there is an imbalance in the melatonin in the system, then you cannot sleep. This is what is called jet lag. You travel across countries which have different time zones, and you come back, and for the next 1 week you cannot do anything. You are sleeping in the day, waking in the night, because the whole circadian rhythm, as they call it, has been disturbed. And who is the master gland there? Who is the pineal gland? Now I want to tell you something, I'm not boasting, but people ask me, because I travel a lot. Travel across continents, and the next day I come to India, there is a retreat or a talk. So many people expect that I'm going to fall asleep on the stage. Nothing happens. Why? Because if you go to a doctor and say, tomorrow I have a very serious talk, what do I do? I have jet lag. He'll say, pop a melatonin pill. But then you keep on popping it. It will never stop. There are ways and means in yoga to control the chemical in the pineal gland. In the same way, what I am trying to say, while the glands, because of the chemical extracts that go into our system, control our moods, in the same way, the mind can control these ductless glands. It also works the other way around. So we need to do a lot of serious research on this. I don't want to just say and then whatever from here. A lot of serious research is required to see if the mind or the brain can help us to bring about the control of certain processes in our body which we think are beyond our control. This is the other set of research that could be done. Now, come to the simple fact, if the body is fit, usually the mind is fit. So, it's very important that we keep the body fit, and for that you have the asanas and so on. All I'm saying is asanas are not merely to keep the body fit, they also play a large role in keeping your mind fit and also to explore your inner nature and figure out that you are not a limited human being with limited faculties, but something much more extraordinary and powerful. For this, the body-mind connection is very, very important. You know, people sit in Padmasana, I'll give you one simple example. We all know that anger is not good. Right? I hope so. If you think it is good, no argument. But we all know that anger, we sometimes do terrible things in anger, which we afterwards regret. And what is anger chemical? Adrenaline is pumped into the system from the adrenal glands. The only question is whether the mind comes first or the adrenaline comes first. That's a different question. But it's a fact that when you are angry, your blood is filled with that. You want to do, you want to hit, you want to do all kinds of things. So therefore, if one decides that anger is not good, you know what happens with anger? I believe personally that many things can be done without anger. In fact, they can be done better. Because in anger, for a short time you go mad. You don't know what you are doing. And this life, if you don't know what you are doing, it's a dangerous life to lead. It springs out, according to the Gita, anger comes from unsatisfied desire. Usually. Simple. I want this. And then I see that somebody else also wants this. Right? I have a desire for this. Then I see some other person also has a desire for this. And I want to snatch it. Then I am angry towards that person because he is interfering with my desire. It's a long slogan, I don't want. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. This is how it starts in the Gita. Buddhinasha pranashyati. That's where it ends. Finally the buddhi is destroyed and we are destroyed. Anger. Now this anger, suppose I decide I can live without anger. Well, I can pretend to be angry sometimes. Believe me, soon people will discover it is a pretension. Can't help it. But many things in this world can be done if we can control this thing called anger. While it is chemical, it is also, the decision has to be made in the mind, which is not chemical, that I have to live without getting angry. Okay, once the decision has been made, there are ways and means to get rid of it. Now you will be surprised. There is a physical asana, which if practiced regularly, you can have great control over your anger. How come? Because this is a particular asana which massages the muscles around the adrenal glands and make the adrenal glands relax. You know the adrenal glands are here. And what is this asana? It's called Matsya asana. Mr. Reddy knows all asanas. He's asana expert. It's called Matsya asana, which means you sit in Padmasana with folded legs and then you fall backwards and hold your hands at the back like this. The whole body is bent like this. What happens? These muscles massage the adrenal glands. If you continuously practice for some time, I can assure, provided you have made the decision, I don't want to get angry, then otherwise there is no point. Then, otherwise you might get angry, why did I start doing this? I'm not getting angry now. Believe me, if you continuously practice Matsyasana for 6 to 7 months, this is an experiment, I am challenging you, you will feel how you are able to relax. Even when anger comes, it usually starts with something here, you know. Anger, emotion, they are all something on the solar plexus here. That heat is slowly reduced. It's all cool. And I say, okay, I won't get angry, but I'll work on this. But in this world that we live in, even though we don't get angry, sometimes we have to pretend to be angry. I'm going to tell you a story. You know why I want to tell you a story? Because I think many people would have slept by now. So, story wakes people up. Story is about, it was told by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. This is Vivekananda or his guru. So there was a small street in a village where inside a hole a dangerous cobra used to live. Nobody would walk. So one day a brahmachari came and everybody said, don't go there, you'll be bitten by this dangerous cobra. He said, don't worry, I know how to control the cobra, you don't worry about it. So he went and the cobra came out. So he did whatever he did, I don't know, and the cobra became peaceful. Then the cobra said, I accept you as my guru. Please give me a mantra to chant so that I may become spiritual. So he gave him a mantra and said, there is one condition. You chant the mantra regularly, condition is, you will not bite anybody. If you don't bite anybody, chant the mantra, then you will become spiritual. Many years passed, 2-3 years. The brahmachari came back. Now in the village he found everybody was running around that street. Children were playing marbles. He said, how it is, what happened to the snake? So he called some kids, what happened to the cobra? Oh, that one, he said, is useless. What? You know what? He stopped biting. and then he broke his spine. All the bones were dislocated and he's lying somewhere underneath. Go, try. So he went and called him. Fellow replied, oh, Guruji, you have come. What happened to you, man? You told me not to bite, right? Yes. So I stopped complete biting. And then they broke my spine and I'm lying here. But I'm still your devotee. I'm still wanting to be spiritual. I'm chanting the mantra. So this and brahmachari told the snake, what kind of an idiot are you? I told you not to bite. Did I ask you not to hiss? So sometimes you need to hiss. Hissing is enough. The problem is like me, very soon the driver also finds out this fellow won't bite, he'll only hiss. But anyway, we live in this world. So, why did I come to this story? Anger. So, there are ways and means in the science of yoga to keep your mind and body controlled, healthy and in good condition. And if it is in good condition, the definition of yoga given by Patanjali in the Yogasutras is Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That means yoga is the Nirodha of the vrittis of the Chitta, translating. Yoga is defined as freeing the mind, the Chitta, from all the disturbances, disappointments, distractions that happen in life. It all happens to everybody in life. Yoga is the means to free the mind of all these distractions, and it has been proved that this is possible. Also, the opposites, hate, too much attachment, these are the vrittis of the Chitta. These have to be carefully processed and removed. When this is removed, then the mind becomes absolutely quiet, like a pond without a ripple. This is the takeoff point to go beyond that which is the mind. This is essential. So, this is the practice of yoga. If one reaches this point, then one takes off to the higher levels of consciousness, not before that. So the whole practice, starting with asana, prana, they all culminate ultimately in the mind becoming free of the vrittis, the mind becoming calm and quiet. Not only when you sit down to meditate, but under all circumstances. It's not enough if the yogi is always meditating, you cannot. You have to get up and be in this world. Sarvatra samabuddhaya. Under all circumstances, the buddhi becomes sama, the mind becomes quiet. When this is attained, then the man, the human being, becomes the yogi. And then you discover that there are vast potentials in you which you had not discovered till then. Because we always like to think we are this small little being who is born, who is going to die. There's some other thing in us which we don't find out. Now, I would say it should start with physical good health. So, how do you have good health? Don't overeat. Don't starve. Golden rule. This Krishna says to Arjuna in the Gita, this yoga is not for him who eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or sleeps too little. Golden rule in everything. If you follow this, the body becomes healthy. Then you do your asanas. Asanas are not just physical exercises. You can't say, no, I am doing, what is that? Zumba dance, so I don't need to do yoga asanas. Or something else I am doing, whatever people do. So, when you practice yoga asanas, they not only give you physical health, they also help to adjust the hormones in your system. This is important to note, which you don't get in other exercises. Then, pranayama. How is pranayama? Which is a physical act linked to something which is not physical, the mind. I'm going to give you a simple example. When you are upset, angry, agitated, just close your eyes and look at your breath for a second. You'll notice that the breathing pattern is very agitated. Either going up and down fast or something is happening to you. Like people say, because of that I'm feeling some pulsation in my heart and so on. Anger, agitation. The movement of the breath becomes very erratic. Now what? If I adjust my breathing and make it quiet. Okay. On the other hand, I'm listening to beautiful music or I'm doing painting or something very nice, which I love to do. Or I'm lying down in the garden and looking up at the moon. Now close your eyes and look at your breath. Be very slow. This is normal, natural. You're going very slowly, quietly, tranquilly. So the Rishis said to themselves, if moods are reflected in your rhythm of breath, is it possible to change the rhythm of the breath and change your moods? From this came the entire science of pranayama. We also have a set of pranayama in Kriya Yoga, which is to do with how to make the prana move in a particular way. Apart from that, simple breathing in and out, by giving complete attention to the breath, which also the Buddhists have, they call it Vipassana, immediately calms the mind and quietens the mind. Much of the vrittis of the mind are removed through constant practice, not in one day, of course. And then therefore that pranayama becomes a stepping stone to the next state of mind, which is quietness and calmness. Quietness and calmness fills the mind with energy. Because every agitation, please understand that you are actually losing contents of energy. If this doesn't happen, the energy is stored and becomes very powerful. And it becomes more than what an ordinary human being can think of. So, therefore, don't think that spiritual practices are merely some kind of superstition. They're all based on a lot of scientific evidence, which need to be, a lot of research needs to be done. But on the practical side, all of us can benefit by keeping the body and the mind healthy through the practice of yoga. So I'm advocating that people practice. If you don't want spiritual, it's all right, leave it. Forget it. In fact, Sankhya, from which Kapila Sankhya, from which yoga Darshana is mostly derived from, it does not even have a concept of Ishvara. Yoga Darshana has Ishvara Pranidhana mentioned, but not in Sankhya. So therefore, which is why I wrote a small commentary on the Yogasutras of Patanjali, and I titled it Yoga Also for the Godless. Not yoga for the godless, mind you, I believe in God. Yoga also for the godless. If you don't, you can still practice yoga. And as you go deeper, you can find out for yourself if you need to believe in something divine or not. If you don't have that belief now. So, this is the subject today. I have discussed as much as I can. We have now 10 to 15 minutes, since we are in a scientific circle, I think, many people. So we can have a small brief dialogue, which is nothing new. It's an ancient, all the Upanishads are dialogues. Okay, since we are on the subject, let me explain one scientific dialogue from the Upanishad, and then we'll get a few minutes. There is an Upanishad called the Chandogya. In this Upanishad, the son of the great Rishi Uddalaka Aruni comes back after his travels to meet his father. And his father says, "Have you understood what you went to learn?" He says, "Sir, I think I have." I mean, this is the generation when sons call their father sir. Times have changed. So, and then he said, "Okay, let me try you out. You see the banyan tree there?" "Yes, sir." "Go there and bring a seed of the banyan tree to me." He goes and brings a seed. "What do you see?" "Sir, I see the rind, the covering of the seed." "Open it." He opens it. "Now what do you see?" "I see the kernel, K-E-R-N-E-L, whitish kernel." "Okay. Now open that also." He opens it. "What do you see?" It's an Upanishadic dialogue. "What do you see?" I'm saying because people think these are all not science. "I see small little black seeds inside." "Take one of those seeds." "Yes, sir." "Open that. What do you see?" "Sir, I see nothing." Says Uddalaka Aruni to his son, "It is from that nothing that the whole banyan tree has come." This is the dialogue. Which means, what appears to be nothing could be the source of everything. And the nearest way you can reach there is when the mind is quiet and calm. Which means we also have tremendous sources of energy to tap if we get rid of the illusion that we are limited. And the first step would be to maintain a healthy body and to have a healthy relationship between mind and body, so that the brain, which today has been accepted to operate through two lobes, the right and the left lobe, even though they work together, each one has its own independent processes. The right brain is now accepted as the intuitive brain, and the left brain as the practical brain. Both these have to be brought into balance. If you bring this into balance, you will lead a wonderful life. Of course, everybody will die in the end, that's a different story. But the difference between a yogi dying and the non-yogi dying is a yogi goes with a smile on his lips. Because he knows nothing dies really. And the other guy is always wondering, "Oh, I am leaving all this here, what will happen to this, that?" And there is suffering. The suffering in death is not because of the fear of the unknown. It is because we cannot take things which we think are permanent with us. If somebody told us, "Hey, you're going to die tomorrow, but you can take your houses, your cars, your family, who is afraid of death?" That is the fear. So, the yogi goes with a smile. He knows anyway it doesn't belong to us. At some point, we are here, interim period, drama is over, bye-bye. Right? So that's it. I rest my case. Sir, anybody wants to ask some question?
Whether you can take mic and ask.
Don't ask me about Babaji. Venu is different. There's a great Vedantic text called Yogasutras. I don't know if you've heard of this. Yogasutras is the great Rishi Vasishtha giving advice to Rama, who is quite despondent and depressed for some reason. But he is very young. This is the Yogasutras. People generally don't read it because they think it's too highly Vedantic. Vasishtha starts by saying that those who believe that everything is distinct are like donkeys. I'm not saying. Vasishtha is saying. So, the thing is, when something happens over which we have no control, we say it is distinct. That's what happens normally. But we have also been given a brain and a mind and a blueprint to change things. Otherwise, life would be meaningless. If I say, look, I am an alcoholic, it is all written here. Can I get rid of it? Or they say, oh, he is a yogi because it is written here. How can we be one? So then there is no search, there is no attainment, there is nothing. Swami Vivekananda also said once that I have pride in what I do. I think I have the willpower to do things and change things. So somebody said then, what about? He said, well, donkeys have no pride, so do you think you compare me with a donkey? I don't know why they look at donkeys and use them as examples. They're actually nice creatures. Anyway. So, I feel that while there is a general blueprint, let me explain this to you. We are all results of millions of years of genetic evolution, right? This we cannot change. Can we change? We can't go back there and tweak with the genes. Not possible. So therefore, we are all born with different circumstances, different genetic content. So, according to that, our preferences can change. Having said that, we are also given the blueprint, are given a brain and a mind to think and see what we can do to our best capacity possible. So, if self-effort is not there, there is no need to practice yoga, there is no need to practice bhakti, there is no need to do Vedanta because it's not in my head. No. I am saying that while there is a general blueprint, because of our predilections based on our genetic content, we still have an opening to try and influence and change things. Right. So how will that happen? It will happen only when the mind becomes free of all distractions, when the mind becomes free of all opposite thoughts, negativity and so on, then it is possible. There is in us an energy by which this can be done. I started this talk with a prayer, with a mantra from the Upanishad called Purnamadat Purnamidam. Did I say? Yes. Which means, in origin, we are complete, we are full. Then it says Purnamidam, this is also full, but that we don't agree, we are never full. We are always unfulfilled. The whole of life is working towards that. Maybe material unfulfillment or spiritual unfulfillment. Either way, we want to fill ourselves. But when we realize that our origin is fullness, then the mind settles down and the fullness begins to act through us. We can do mighty, wonderful things which we could not even have thought possible for us to do. Why? Because we are going beyond the mind, which while is constructive can also be destructive. It can condition us and also uncondition. It is the mind. If the mind begins to think I am unconditioned, it becomes greater, grows, begins to have more energy. If it begins to think, no, I am sure I can't, then you are weak. It's the mind. So if you change the thought process in the mind, it's possible to change your life. Now from our understanding, the yogic understanding, is that everything starts from the Sahasrara. Sahasrara is not just the brain, something beyond, but the brain is the physical representative of the Sahasrara. And at the bottom of the spine is the center called the Mooladhara. The word itself means Moola Adhara, root foundation. It's our ID, Aadhar card, Moola Adhara. Now, most of our energies and thoughts and awareness is in the Mooladhara, which is why we have desires, we have sex, we eat food. The idea is, if the prana which is there can be sublimated and made to move along the central channel called the Sushumna, which is where the spinal cord comes, and starting from the Sahasrara, then a human being begins to evolve spiritually. Yoga is done very scientifically, but in other ways of sadhana, it happens by itself without actual experimenting on the actual thing. But in yoga, it's a step-by-step process by which the prana is made to ascend. We call it Mukhya prana. To ascend this and come to the Sahasrara, where then the human being begins to understand his divine attributes and faculties. This is what, if you must read the Gyaneshwari, if you have a translation. It's originally in Marathi. Or if you can get a copy of the Lahiri Mahashaya's commentary on the Gita, you will get full details in this. We cannot go into all the details. It will take a week's class for 2 hours or something like that. There is somewhere a misunderstanding that our ancients were living in ignorance. This is the first step we have to break. They were not living in ignorance. They may not have made huge palaces and skyscrapers. That was not their interest. Now people have skyscrapers, and when they want to relax, they go to resorts in the forest. Right? So, they have the knowledge of many things, not that we don't know, perhaps there were scientific instruments available. If no such physical scientific were available, suppose their minds had expanded to such an extent that they could find out all these things with the instrument being the mind itself. So, plus, in mathematics, if you look back, they have done a lot of research and work on mathematics. Mathematics does not require an instrument or an experimental apparatus. It is mostly here. Go and read Aryabhata. Go and read many other great mathematicians. Even Ramanuja, he did not have a proper grounding. It was intuitive for him. He could solve equations in 1 minute. How did it come from? I say that every human has that potential. We have neglected it today because we have a lot of support systems. Support systems are good, but we should not neglect the original. Today I was coming and asking, AI is going to come, artificial intelligence. Good, I'm not saying it bad. But will it happen at one time, instead of we controlling AI, AI begins to control us? Then what happens? It is a similar situation. Today, even without AI, much of our decisions that are taken, we think are independent decisions, but they happen because of internet, because of ads, because of publicity, because of the psychological messages that you see every day. We think we are taking independent, we are not. Many of us, our brains are controlled. I think in ancient days, the Rishis who went on to these subjects, they had minds which were free. And a free mind is a mind which has access to limitless energy. I cannot say that there were no instruments. There could have been. We do not know. This much is 100% as I understand it. Just imagine, sir, a Rishi 2000 years ago asking you, who are you? We don't even think about it. We think we know who we are. What is your origin? Why do you call yourself me? Who are you? What constitutes this? Such questions were asked 2000 years ago. Chandogya Upanishad, the very meaning of the word Chandogya is who? Who are you? Identity crisis. Yeah, now this is interesting, important. We must approach the youngsters not as if we are trying to teach them something, but we must approach them saying, while you are in a scientific institute, just a suggestion, studying about chemicals and their actions and so on, please understand that there is another great subject which is mind. And the mind is linked to the chemicals. And if you can understand the mind, then you probably can do better even in your physical and material world. This approach will help them to take it a little more seriously. You know, today if you sit, 10 people are sitting, nobody is communicating with each other, everybody is. And the youngsters know. One of the reasons being that we elders have not been able to provide them things which are more interesting than what is here. So my suggestion is that youngsters, they should not be criticized, because criticism will just blunt the exposure. You should say, look, it's good you do all this, but there are also other things which we can study even through this. And therefore, look at some things which are good for you, which will improve your thinking, which will expand your mind. After all, the distraction happens because they want information, right, about various things. So here is an information which will make you from human to superhuman. So with that kind of approach, if a teacher can talk to them, then I think now it should be entirely non-denominational. Don't say this religion, that religion. No, as a proper understanding of the mind. Then, after they get interested, if you have 100 children, 100 students, 1 or 2 may get interested. Then they will go into the study of this literature and then they will figure out for themselves. I think that should be. So what I am suggesting, as we have in our school, we should have one period, or one, like IIT is doing it now. In the IIT Delhi, I am on the board, not board, on the faculty, sorry. We are studying this. I am saying be open, have open minds, and let's have a discussion. So I have online courses with them. Sometimes I go, when I go to Delhi, they're interesting questions because they are young people, they are free. They ask me, and if I get offended by that, then I cannot teach them. So we need mature people who know the subject to have some interaction with the students, because it will help a great deal to incorporate the knowledge of the mind with the knowledge of the physical sciences which they have. It can only be done by the teachers. We should have a meeting of young students together and say, let's have an open discussion of this. I think that's a good idea to do. This is happening abroad in many places. Why can't we have it here? I'm not talking about this. So I think we'll wind up now. It's already 11:30. Longer than I expected. Thank you very much for